What is up, cinephiles, and welcome back to Screen Kings. For today's movie roundup, we have vampires, gypsies, heights, and predators. Let's kick things first with Netflix Day Shift, directed by J.J. Perry. This is an action comedy vampire film, and in it we have Bod Jablonski, played by Jamie Foxx, an LA-based freelance vampire hunter who is in dire need of cash for his daughter's tuition and dental braces, so he teams up with a union representative, Seth, played by Franco, in order to hunt vampires legally during the day. So early on, the movie establishes that there is this secret bureaucratic organization that's dedicated to hunt vampires. So this movie is like Men in Black, but we have vampires instead of aliens. It's a pretty basic setup, I would say, but what this movie excels is definitely the action. This is the directorial debut for J.J. Perry, and obviously his experience when it comes to action choreography, the wire work, and the practical effects really paid off, because we have here a lot of exciting zombie kills, kinetic camera work, and acrobatic stunts. For me, easily the best action sequence here would have to be the one that's involving the Dazarian brothers, one of which is Scott Adkins, one of my favorite stunt actors. So there's a lot of slaughter of vampires here. It gets really graphic and grisly, and it's a nice contrast to the sarcasm and the comedy that's happening. The way this movie is shot, it's brightly shot. Normally when we have vampire films, they're dim and gritty, but in here, the aesthetics is very LA. And Jamie Foxx here is his usual likable self. We know that he has a good comic timing, and he shows it in here. He's kind of a Tommy Lee Jones character where he doesn't play by the rules, and there's a body comedy, a rookie veteran situation going on here with Franco, who's a bit uptight, he's squeamish, he's more into regulation. So that kind of dynamic is something that we have seen before, but the banter is fun. Not all of the jokes land, but they have a good chemistry here to keep the rest of the film going. Then there's Snoop Dogg. If anything else, you might want to see him dressed as a cowboy firing a chain gun, so that is definitely a sight. As for the supporting characters, most of them are just surface level characters, stepping stones to get Bod here from one plot point to another. And I think the biggest disadvantage of this film is it didn't really utilize its concept. We have here a secret society. At one point, I'm thinking that maybe they could have turned this story to a humans versus humans scenario where they're competing each other to hunt these vampires, and the vampires are, who's supposed to be the bigger threats here, end up being like pawns to be picked off. So that would be interesting, but the movie doesn't go into that direction. And the thing is, it feels like there is a lack of knowledge or a general context to this organization. You know that these vampire hunters are selling these fangs for cash. And what are those fangs for? Who are buying them? Are they for fashion purposes? The movie never really explained why. So in effect, the main villain here, played by Carla Souza, is just one-dimensional. So this movie is an engaging watch, be it a summer blockbuster or something that you might save up for Halloween. But the thing is, with its paint-by-the-numbers execution, you know that this could have been so much more. It's a bit of a missed opportunity because J.J. Perry has the action already in lock, but the script is not really on that same level. So since this is just a streaming film, I wouldn't complain much, but if this is something that I've seen on the theater, I will feel disappointed. So I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5. It's watchable, but for a film that's trying to balance that comedy, action, and horror, the action is definitely in there. Comedy is just okay, and horror is not so much in there, in the way that Fright Night is trying to do. I think this is just an okay film, not a terrible way to spend a few hours. So yeah, the next one we have is Fall, directed by Scott Mann. This is a survival thriller, and in it we have two best friends named Becky and Hunter, played by Grace Caroline Curry and Virginia Gardner, respectively. And they decided to climb this 2,000 feet rusty TV tower just because #YOLO. One of the characters here keeps saying that life is short, you must overcome your fears and push yourself to your limits. So yeah, they decided to climb this abandoned, isolated tower. Unfortunately, they get stranded on the top with no way down except to jump and die. So I wasn't actually planning to watch Fall, but then I missed the screening for Bullet Train, so I just settled for this. And it's not that bad actually. It pretty delivered for a B-movie thriller, and considering how the trailer exposed these characters to be dumb, because I can't believe that they actually decide to climb this tower without telling anyone about it. But then again, I was reminded about the dude from 127 Hours, where he hasn't told anyone what he's about to do, so I'm giving this a pass. I won't be a killjoy here because I'm using my common sense here. It's time to use the movie logic, you know? So this one, it's able to mind the suspense. For this single location thrillers where the protagonists are stuck in one place, once you get them to the top, there's nothing for them to do. Where is the story going? So if you think director Scottman can no longer push the envelope further, he proves you wrong by introducing some twists and turns in this film. There are 2 twists in this film, both of which I predicted, but I guess that's just okay because I've seen a lot of survival films. For a survival film, this movie gets it right by establishing the logistics of their survival. What are their supplies that they're needing? How do they conserve those supplies? How to get from point A to point B. So the movie has a lot of one harrowing sequence to another, and it's just a roller coaster of emotions. And pair that with the cinematographer McGregor, who has really done a great job in exploiting our acrophobia and making sure that those POV shots will really get into you. I don't have acrophobia, but the fear and the tension that I felt while watching this movie is just palpable. I was so stressed. I was literally on the edge of my seat. It felt like a horror movie because there are some jump scares here, some fake outs, and then gore. I would say the CGI is also good in delivering that whole atmosphere, and there's also a human drama in this film. I wouldn't say it's the most engaging one, but in terms of trying to develop the character arcs, I'm glad that the movie did not resort on padding some sappy flashbacks because that will instantly cut the tension here. So I'm glad that it just stayed on the tower for the majority part of the film up to the climax. Both actresses are also good in expressing their emotions. They're becoming increasingly more fraught as the hours pass by. The actress who played Becky here has some poignant moments, and it's in a way a character exploration for her because she's trying to process grief, she's trying to overcome her. So the movie gets a lot of sympathy from her. However, the character here played by Hunter, I'm going to rant a bit here. I don't like this character. I think she could be possibly the worst best friend you're going to have because she's the one who's responsible for them getting into that situation. Hunter forced Becky to confront her traumas when she's clearly not in the proper headspace, and she keeps on saying that we must overcome our fears, but she's an influencer, so most likely she's just doing it for the fame. But anyway, overall, for a minimalist thriller film, I think this one pushes all the right buttons because there is just a clear tension and nerve-wracking suspense from start to finish. I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 5. Those aerial shots will really get you, and sweaty palms are guaranteed. And considering that they did this on a small budget, that's already impressive. Okay, the next one is another Netflix film called Heartsong, directed by Soner Kaner. This is an offbeat Turkish rom-com, and in it we have a gypsy singer named Piros, played by Erkan Köstendil, who falls in love with a bride-to-be named Sumbul during a wedding. So these two plans on eloping, much to the chagrin of Sumbul's parents. Now, as the movie opens up, we have Piros, and I think opening this film with him is a perfect way to set the tone because he's a carefree character who finds joy in the little things. And then we have here Sumbul. She's a radiant face in this movie. She represents beauty and naivety. These characters might feel a little far-fetched to be seen as real persons, but the romance between them and their meet cute is just so adorable. It started with them singing a tune that both of them knows from the heart, and it's just an instant connection. I'm not usually a big fan of love at first sight, or in this case, love at first tune, but it completely sold me. Now the challenge here is how to maintain that, because I felt like the movie did not really utilize their chemistry here. I wish there are more scenes of them bonding together. I really wanted to like this movie because we have these peculiar characters who are individually should be interesting enough, but for the rest of the film, the pacing becomes slow. It's a bit of a shame because I'm really liking the backdrop here of the gypsy culture, seeing them as a community, how they operate, how their culture bleeds into their music. So there is a strong sense of community here. Piros himself is an odd character, but with his community behind him, he feels more authentic. The character here who has the most depth, I would say, is Piros' father, who is Mirze. He's definitely the most interesting aspect of this film because he has a unique way of processing his grief. His wife died, so he replaced her with this mannequin, and clearly there is a delusion here because he can't differentiate an actual person versus a mannequin. There is a good payoff to this story arc. It involves some magic realism, or however the way you want to interpret here, but that strong payoff is just for the subplot of the film, and it makes me question, like, what is the heart of the film? Is it Mirze, or should have been Piros and Sumbul's love stories? So I think in that aspect where it mattered the most, the movie felt short. And as for everything else, I think the cinematography is spectacular. The landscapes here are framed perfectly, and then the music here, actually most of the scenes that I enjoy here involves music. But as a whole, I would say this offbeat rom-com, it doesn't feel like it belongs into this era because it's just too offbeat to make sense on what's happening in this movie. I'm giving this a 2.5 out of 5. It has the potential to be a unique rom-com, but the story is something that's not tugging me. That might be subjective. So if you want to watch a movie with peculiar characters, I would still suggest this. This might have a different impact to you than what it did for me. And now for my final film, we have the survival period piece film called Prey, directed by Trachtenberg. So this is no secret a prequel to the Predator film. In it, we have a Comanche woman named Naru, played by Midthunder, who goes against gender norms and traditions to become a fierce warrior. Now, what I like about this film is it knows the core things that makes Predator an exciting watch. It goes back to the basics of, humans trying to observe in order to outwit the Predator. This movie managed to tap into that classic setup, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's retreading the first film, and that is largely thanks to the period setting that we have here, the 1700s. I love the casting of the indigenous people here and how their culture is incorporated into the story. It never feels contrived because the story of Prey here is focused on the hunt. For the indigenous people here, it's all about survival and food. That is the purpose of their hunt. On the other hand, for the Predator, the hunt's purpose is to assert himself on the top of the food chain. And also adding to that, we have some French colonizers here, so it puts an interesting and complex dynamic to prey and predator relationships because we basically have three factions of hunters here. Initially, you might say that the predators have their upper hand because they have advanced technology. How are the primitive people are going to match up against that with their old-fashioned tools? That is something you have to wait and to see it all unfold, because I think this is a very satisfying underdog story, David versus Goliath story. The action is well shot, close quarter combats. Midthunder here is just a force of nature. We see her do a lot of continuous shots of fighting, kicking ass, so that's her doing most of the stunts, running around, rolling in the mud. So she's very dedicated into her purpose, and I love how the movie understands her strength. It's not a rah-rah loud feminist movie. It just settles for the quieter strengths of this character, and because she has this unintimidating presence, her wit, shines more. Dan Trachtenberg, I have to commend him for maintaining the suspense from start to finish. It's still gory, it's still stylish, it's still brutal for the horror fans to appreciate. And most of all, I think this movie has found its lost magic from the previous Predator sequels. It has found a compelling story, a protagonist that you can really root, with a great evolution towards the end. So if I have any gripes here, I would say I wish they spoke in the Comanche language. I know, I get that they're trying to cater this to a global audience, but if they're speaking on the native language, this movie would have been a whole more visceral. And then maybe this movie is, yes, predictable. Naru here has final girl vibes written all over her face, but it's nice to see this unfold. So overall, Prey, I would say it doesn't break new ground. There's nothing new or revelatory information when it comes to the Predator here, but this movie knows what the strength of the Predator films is, and it just makes this compact 90-minute brisk pace of a film filled with action and suspense. It's highly rewatchable. I share the same sentiment when a lot of people have been saying that they should have put this on the theater. I will even go beyond that and say this is the best Predator film, better than the first one, because I think this one has more depth. It's just not pure masculinity. I love how Naru here adds different layers to the film, and it's more stylish thanks to that period setting. So I'm gonna give this one a 4.5 out of 5. I'm more excited to see what stories can they create, because I can see different spin-offs of the Predator visiting humankind at certain points in the history, clashing with different warriors of culture. So that will be exciting. So yeah, I think Dan Trachtenberg opened the door here. That's it for my reviews for those films. Have you seen any of them? Let me know what you think in the comment sections down below. Also, if you enjoyed watching this video, hit that like, and if you haven't yet, subscribe for future content. Thank you so much guys for watching. Until then, I'll see you all on the next one.